Hello everyone, this is Lying Figure, and we're back here today playing Silent Hill 3 once again. And we left off here in the chapel, in the church, and we're going to explore this room a little bit. So we did save here before we ended the last episode, but there's something right here that we didn't pick up, which is this item on the, whatever this is called, and it's the Eye of the Night tarot card. Let's take a look at that in our inventory. Also, let's switch back to our SMG. Some cutscenes, for some reason, will switch us to different items, or different weapons. Usually the handgun. Found this in a chapel. Is this the real tarot card, though? Now, I'm pretty sure it's tarot, because I've heard it said before, but maybe it's tarot, I don't even know. I don't know anything about magic stuff, really. Anyways, I just wanted to, before we go anywhere, I have a few things I'd like to talk about. First off, just a quick side note, little mention. We saw this symbol on this talisman here. This is called the Seal of Metatron, is the symbol. It's the big triangle and all the other circles around it. And we see that all the time in Silent Hill 1. It's put all over the town for different reasons, but it's a cult symbol, basically. And I actually was reading about it earlier today, and apparently in the, now this is spoilers for Silent Hill 2, in the Double Pyramid Head boss fight room, you can actually see on the floor two very faint seals of Metatron, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I just thought of that because I saw the metal, but there's also a few other things I wanted to talk about, which is that I made a mistake in one of my last few episodes, which is when I was in the hospital, in Brookhaven Hospital, I was looking through the smoky window and trying to figure out what was going on, and we managed to figure out it was Voltiel and a woman figure who was being pushed around and everything. And also when we were crawling the big ladder up into the other world, we saw a nurse, kind of statue figure there that was very strange looking and not the same nurse as the enemy nurses. And I said that it's the Fukuro lady, which is, as I read today, actually false. Because the Fukuro, if you don't know, is an art video that they did, Team Silent made for Silent Hill 2, excuse me, not 3, for Silent Hill 2. It's a little art video, not like a trailer or anything like that, but just like a short abstract art video they made with some of the models like Pyramid Head and all those things. A Fukuro lady is the very sexy, specific nurse model who it turns out was meant to be an enemy in Silent Hill 2, hence why she's so sexualized, but was left out because there was already sexy bubblehead nurses, so there's no point into adding her. However, the figure that we saw, despite having a very similar model, I'm showing you right now the figure for that we saw, as opposed to Fukuro lady, which I'll show here. This is from the Fukuro video. You can see that the outfits are identical, and the head is always blocked off or wrapped up in a bag in Fukuro, but what the model that we saw is actually just called the Brookhaven Nurse. And I won't even bother mentioning this difference, except for the Brookhaven Nurse is apparently it's kind of a big deal in the lore community because no one really knows what it is, what its purpose is, because there are two reasons basically. Is because one, Masahiro Ito, the enemy designer, says that the Brookhaven Nurse and Fukuro lady are completely separate entities. They just look similar and that's it. And the other interesting fact is that in the Book of Lost Memories, it actually does point out in a very bottom section of one of the pages, which is why I missed it apparently, is that it points out that the Brookhaven Nurse looks very normal in a way, kind of pretty and everything, and is therefore meant to symbolize Lisa Garland. But there's been a lot of debate about that and whether that's a translation error, because there's all sorts of Japanese to English grammar issues and maybe people can't seem to figure it out. But I just thought I'd mention that little mystery. And before we look at all these paintings and explain the cult of the religion of the cult, I want to talk a bit about Heather, because now that we know she's pregnant, now that we know she's half Alessa, half Cheryl, we know everything we need to know for me to talk about Heather, and just tell you some things about her. But really, I was actually taking some notes earlier. I don't have them in front of me, but just to make sure I'm not missing anything, and I'm thinking about Heather and trying to figure out all these different things. And Heather is pretty simple, actually. She's not named after any big thing. She's not modeled after any specific person. There's a couple, but her name just comes from Heather Morris, who is the voice actress for Heather. And, well, in the original game, not the HD collection. And also, interesting fact, if you look at the early promotional materials, and even if you have a PS2 copy of the game, if you have it, you should take it out and look at the back cover. You'll see that it says Heather Morris and not Heather Mason. And most people say it's just an error and, it's a mistake by the developers, because that's what they called her for a long time. But I think that this is just a theory, but I think that it might be intentional. It's kind of a Metal Gear Solid 2 deal, where it's kind of a bait and switch. I'd have to go back and look at all the trailers for these games to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that her being Harry's daughter and her being, related to the first game so closely is actually meant to be sort of a reveal, and hence I think that's why they put Morris instead of Mason on the back of the box, because otherwise fans would know immediately. And just another interesting fact is that she's actually based on an actress named Sophie Marceau, and one that's more well known, which is Charlotte Gainsbourg. And Charlotte Gainsbourg, especially, I can see it. I was looking back around the time period this was being developed and trying to figure out why exactly she was modeled after that. You can really see with the hair here and everything, you can tell. And anyways, now I'm going to start showing you a string of concept art. And this concept art's very interesting because for James doesn't have, James Sunderland from Silent Hill 2, the main character. James has literally one concept model, which is just him with what is essentially Harry's head. But otherwise, there's no real concept art of James. There's nothing that it seems to exist. And whether that's just because he's pretty plain looking, and the same thing goes for Harry, or not, it's hard to tell. But there's so much concept art for Heather, because the team was trying to figure out what she should look like, what color her hair should be, how long it should be, if it should be curly, super long, super short, if she should be bald. They were trying to figure out what she would wear. The male team members who were designing her wanted her to wear jeans, but then Team Silent being either 50% or even more female, the teams, because, well, let me preface this by saying the male team members didn't want to make her sexualized in any way, really. I mean, not at all, because technically she's underage, she's 17, and they didn't want to sexualize her, which I think is good, especially in this case, just because, it fits her character more, it makes her feel more real and full, and they didn't want to sexualize her, so they wanted her to wear jeans and just look kind of plain and ugly, kind of. Not ugly, but not especially, super voluptuous. And the female designers actually said, hey, she should show her legs more, that's more of an American female thing to do, she should do that, she should do this, she should look like this. So her design was originally this, and then the person you see on the right is named Elle Holloway, who's a character from Silent Hill Homecoming, because her original design was actually recycled for that character. But then we started getting designs like this, in which she's wearing her skirt, and she's wearing a closer vest to what we have now, and of course the colors changed a bit, everything was a little bit different, but you can definitely see the similarities in development. The face changed a lot too, is kind of generic at first, and younger and older, much older at some points, but then it settled on this now, and I think she's, a very wonderful character design. Simple but effective. I think that goes for most of Silent Hill's character designs. Not enemy designs, those are crazy and complex, but very effective too. Anyways, that's all I really wanted to say about Heather. I would, I try to think about more things to say, and I figured there would be more, but really we learn so much about her in the story that there's not much else to say. Anyways, sorry for that long rant on a few topics, but I wanted to make sure, since these are the last few episodes, we cover everything and we get everything. So these are the paintings here, where, let's see which one this was, because these are all numbered, so, okay, this is 4, so I think we want to go to the other side and start at 1. Is this 1? Nope. Must be in the far left here. So these paintings are very important because they're the basis for most of Silent Hill's, like the Silent Hill series, cult stuff, the town's magic and everything, and it explains the motivations of the characters and the cult and everything. So these are very important. So let's read these, and we'll make sure to pay attention to these. 1. Origin. In the beginning, people had nothing. Their bodies ached, and their hearts held nothing but hatred. They fought endlessly, but death never came. They despaired, stuck in the eternal quagmire. 2. Birth. A man offered a serpent to the sun and prayed for salvation. A woman offered a reed to the sun and asked for joy. Feeling pity for the sadness that had overrun the earth, God was born from these two people. So kind of an Adam and Eve thing. 3. Salvation. God made time and divided it into day and night. God outlined the road to salvation and gave people joy, and God took endless time away from the people. Endless time, not... yeah, you get it. Anyways, I just want to show this picture real quick, because that's God in all the red and draped in the curtain. I always like that view of God, how it kind of looks like she's got curtains from the heaven that she descended on and is holding on to. But yeah, the idea of a female God is pretty interesting, especially in the story, and it makes sense since Heather's female and femininity is a big theme of this game. So there's God again. 4. Creation. God created beings to lead people in obedience to her. The red god, Zuchilbera, the yellow god, Lobsulvith, many gods and angels. Finally, God set out to create paradise, where people would be happy just by being there. Promise. But there God's strength ran out, and she collapsed. All the world's people grieved this unfortunate event, yet God breathed her last. She returned to the dust, promising to come again. 6. Faith. So God hasn't been lost. We must offer our prayers and not forget our faith. We wait and hope for the day when the path to paradise will be opened. So let me show you this picture here. If you just look in the bottom right there, you'll notice there's a floor with a hole in the ground. And I just want you to remember that particular imagery. But just to summarize, so basically there was misery, and then Adam and Eve created God, and then God was very good to the people and created wonderful things, started working on paradise, but then died. So the idea is when she's returned through faith, prayer, and all those things that the cult loves, she will finally bring about paradise. Now, there are obvious connections to Christianity with Adam and Eve and all that, and those are not, those are very intentional. No point saving, I suppose. Let me look at this piano, or organ. There's nothing I can do with the organ. I don't know how to play anyways. I thought organs were all hooked up to walls and covered in, pipes that they... Strange. Anyways, Um, that's basically the cult's motivation, as you just saw there. Kind of self-explanatory, but it's a very essential. In fact, I think on my first playthrough I actually ran by these. Somehow I missed them. Like I saved here and I quit and I came back and I assumed that I had read them, so I just left and I missed them. And when I read them on my second playthrough, I was astounded because I was like, wow, this makes Silent Hill 1 make sense, this makes Silent Hill 3 make sense, and you know what? It makes Silent Hill 4 make sense too. So I was pretty I those are very important just to the general understanding of the cult and the mythology of Silent Hill. So let's head through this door. And for some reason when we go through this door, my flashlight turns off. I doubt there's any lore meaning to it. I think it's just a bug. But there's a pretty cool map here. Very obviously drawn by a child. Church map. So everyone either calls it the church or the chapel because it's a map, because they call it the church map, but then the map itself says chapel. So no one's sure. But you can tell, obviously drawn by a child. Who that child is, safe to guess Alessa, considering she was involved in the cult and probably came here as a kid. But it could be one other character who is Claudia, who also came here as a kid and was raised in the cult, which we'll learn more about pretty soon. But yeah, a nice little house there. And this map was actually inspired by one of the developers had a kid, and they started just making and drawing maps like this of different places. They'd look up images of France and try to write out maps of them. And so the developers said, wouldn't it be cool if we made a map that looks like a kid drew it, and then we kind of had Heather draw things as she goes, which we'll see soon. This is just the basis map, but then as we go, we're going to fill this area out. Cool stuff, though. So we're going to head inside this confessional here. I have the feeling that there's someone on the other side of this door, but the door is shut tight and I can't open it no matter how hard I try. So let's head in the other door then, and I will be quiet because it will be a cutscene.
Dear God, please forgive me. I know I'll be put to death for the sins I've committed. And I'll go to my death gladly and with a peaceful heart. But please, grant me just a small piece of your everlasting mercy. Let me see my child once within your golden gates. Deliver me not to hell, but to purgatory. Allow me to atone for my sins there. I'll stand within the very flames of redemption, no matter how they burn me. Forgive me for my wicked act of revenge. And deliver the soul of my poor murdered daughter. Please, also care for the soul of the girl whose life I have taken. God, I am a child, trembling with fear as I stare at death. Soothe my tortured soul with your infinite mercy. Please, forgive me.
I forgive you.
Thank you, Lord.
So I just want to say I might have just realized why they turn off the flashlight when you go through that door, which is because the camera's right there and the lens flare is very powerful when the flashlight is on. Let's see if we can interact with this. There's nothing more to be said. Fair enough. So, this is interesting for a few reasons. Now, from the context clues of the little girl and everything, we can kind of we can just tell it's not Claudia. It might sound a little bit like her. If I don't think it's the same voice actress. It sounds a bit like her, but the action she's committed, it's not murder on Harry. It's something else. So it's not Claudia. It's just some spirit. It's kind of assumed to be a spirit instead of an actual person who's in here. And many people speculate this is actually Dahlia Gillespie, who's Alessa's mother, who is, you know, very remorseful for what she's done. Although she never showed it in Silent Hill 1, maybe this is that. And originally this was not even going to be here, but later on in development, the developers decided, well, we want something that shows Heather's doubt, and it shows the contradiction in her actions, and it shows her doubt and how at heart she wants to forgive Claudia for what she's done, but she just can't really. And so they put this in here to show the contradiction in I'm heading forward to take revenge, but along the way I'm going to stop and forgive someone who's done something similar. And so it's an interesting thing. Sorry, and we'll see how it all plays out. But this actually does affect your ending. So the ending is based on a point system, and if you kill enough enemies and if you forgive this person, you will, you need, I believe it's 4,000 points. It's either 4 or 3,000. I think it's 4,000. And forgiving this person gives you 1,000 points, and then you get 10 points for each enemy you kill and a certain amount of points for every point of damage you take. And the more you get, if you get up to 4,000, you can get the ending. Hopefully we don't get that ending, because it is the bad ending. Sorry. Wow, what is that noise? It's not even in the middle of the night and I'm yawning. So there's a door over here that's completely locked up, which we'll have to go through later. And you can see there's a gate here, and that's the hardcore Rust and Blood otherworld that we've come to expect. So let's head through this door. I'm just going to run through here. Except I want to point out, notice that this is the closer. And the closer looks quite a bit different. He's got a strange rot to him. And that brings up an interesting point that I'll touch on in a second. Is this a person? Not quite, maybe, but I don't feel like pulling the sheets back to find out. So there's some big fat asses over here, an insane cancer. But we're just going to kind of walk by him and go in this door. Now, the point I want to touch... Oh, I really like this camera angle, don't you? It looks really cool. The point I want to touch on is that a lot of the enemies in here will have slightly altered texture, slightly looking like a parasitic texture where they've got some weird disease, skin, weird crawling stuff all over them. And the enemies here will actually do more damage and take more damage. And this is because this is the chapel, this is the church, and as you saw in that painting, well, I'll talk about it later. I'll talk about it now, but that floor with a hole in the middle that we saw in that painting is actually like the epicenter of the cult, and it's where they used to watch rituals and watch all sorts of crazy things go down for their god. And so this church is considered basically the epicenter of the Silent Hill town's magic. So the enemies here will be stronger, things will be quite a bit different. We're going to be summoning all sorts of memories and areas that we wouldn't really be able to see in real life. That's just even the fog world. No useful information here. Let's look at this bed. can't interact with it. So, if this is the room I think it is, that'll be interesting, but... So there's a tape here. Let's grab that. Cassette tape. Let's crack open this report, this folder, and read it. There are a bunch of papers in this file. I get the feeling that it's handwritten copy of some book. Represents the deity known as the Halo of the Sun. In heraldry symbolizes a religious group. The 2 outer circles are charity and resurrection. The 3 inner circles are present, past, and future. Usually drawn in red, occasionally drawn in black or other colors, but blue reverses the meaning into a curse on God and is therefore forbidden. So this is of course referring to the symbol there. Sorry. Which is the save symbol that we recognize. It's called the Halo of the Sun. Which is why playing Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 I've been referring to it as the Halo of the Sun, is because of this document right here. So just a slight explanation of what it is. It is in fact a religious symbol. So let's dodge this person. And check this door. Can't go inside. Run past this fatty. And in here we're going to come across an interesting situation. In which if you look on the floor and listen, there's some crying and bloody footsteps. There's a picture here of an angel flying into the heavens, nothing special. I get the feeling there's something behind this picture though. That girl's cries and footsteps disappeared beyond it after all. Will you move the picture? Sure. And we can go through. But we're going to turn back around and go into this room up here. Now these cries and footsteps are generally thought to be, well, from what I've read, people say that it's Lisa Garland's, the nurse. But I don't think it is. I think it's just Alessa, because 1, we're in the church, 2, the footsteps are very small, and 3, the crying sounds like a little girl. But for some reason, the wiki and another fan site listed as Lisa Garland. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't think it is. So there's a room here called the Belfry we can check out. I notice that there's a big halo of the sun on the floor here, which we're gonna go ahead and. The circle means reincarnation. That's what it said on that paper back there. So death isn't the end. Pretty good deal, if you ask me. Thanks to reincarnation, I died as Alessa, but I'm still living as myself. But you know, just the thought of it is starting to turn my stomach. So let's go ahead and save our game here. Cool stuff. So let's look at these paintings really quickly. So there's this one here, Saint Jennifer, Unwavering Faith Under the Death's Blade. So Saint Jennifer refers to Jennifer Carroll, and if you remember, there's in Silent Hill 2 when you go in Rosewater Park, there's a statue of a saint called Saint Jennifer Carroll, and there's also a street called Carroll Street named after her. And Jennifer is, of course, if you read the statue, if you go in the game's files and you look at the text and you can see uncensored because most of it's blocked off, it says that she was a victim of persecution by the Christians. So we can assume that she, unwavering faith under death's blade was the Christian blade. Now let's check this other side picture before we look at the center. And this guy is Saint Nicholas, Miraculous Hands, the Doctor of God. Nothing much to say about this picture. He's just Saint Nicholas, that's it really. Not Santa Claus. And Saint Alessa, Mother of God, Daughter of God. This picture, that's me. I'm holding the baby, and I'm the baby being held. The me that wanted death and disappeared with God 17 years ago, and the me here now that sought life. I just like this picture because she slowly realizes, oh, I'm both of those people. Which is pretty neat. So that's Alessa, of course, as the incubator, and then the baby that was handed to Harry at the end of Silent Hill 1. So let's keep moving. let's check out this next room here that we were in but turned around. Now there's a strange burrowing noise, and that's because if you look in the bottom right of the screen here, you can see there's a small man crawling in here, crawling in here back and forth. And this is very confusing to many people as to why it's here. He can't hurt you, can't do anything to you, but this is the demon and spirit Voltiel. Again, the God's helper, basically. He's trying to help along our pregnancy and make sure that God gets born. And for some reason he's crawling in here. I'm not sure why he is. Maybe to symbolize babies crawling. I have no clue though. But it's pretty funny. We can go through here and we're going to encounter an enemy we've kind of seen before. That's locked. And let me... Oh! Whoa! He really sprinted after me. So you recognize this guy looks quite a lot like the missionary. Whoa. Now they are two separate entities, but he is just a smaller version of the missionary boss that we fought, who killed Harry. And I mentioned it before, so I won't go on long about it, but this is called the Scraper, and it's got long Tonfa type weapons, and the Scraper basically represents abortion, to put it. Yeah, because there's a method of abortion where it kind of scrapes the fetus out, and that's what it's meant to refer to because of the theme of problematic pregnancies and so on. And that's supported by the fact that when you look at the model here, I would show a render or better concept art, but there's none, really. I can't find a high-resolution render of him, so I'll just use the screenshot. But you can see big, tight red gloves that he's wearing. Of course, doctors wear gloves. Got a mask around his face, like a surgical mask, sort of. And, sort of an apron, doctors, covering up. And so that's where that symbolism generally comes from. Scrapers are interesting because they're the clearest example in all of Silent Hill of an enemy who is human. Which we can tell because if you look at this screenshot, which is a close-up view of the model, you can see nose, a mouth, a nose, a mouth, almost eyes, a forehead, top of the head, wrapped in bandages, but it's still there underneath the mask, which is very interesting. And they're interesting because they are the most human enemies, and because a lot of people think that they look like monsters to you. The famous line by Vincent is referring specifically to these, because it will be said in this area, and they are, human in a way. So only canon example really, like completely official canon of a human being a monster in these games, or being turned into one of the enemies. So there's a multi-floor system here, and we're gonna head through this door, and we'll be in this room, which will bring us some famous cutscenes, or a famous cutscene. But first, let's read these books. Silent Hill's Ancient Gods, a study of their etymology and evolution. What a mouthful. Now, just look at the bottom left, that's obviously Alessa, the incubator from Silent Hill 1. And at the top right, that's the incubus, which is the demon that we fought in Silent Hill 1, the final boss, which is pretty neat. There is no religion that has remained unchanged from the moment it was founded. This one is no exception. When this religion fell into the hands of immigrants, it was deeply influenced by their own original Christian beliefs. For example, the traditional representatives of these primal gods may be given the names and descriptions of Christian angels. Thus shared characteristics begin to appear. There's also one rare example of the chief deity, creator of paradise or lord of serpents and reeds, being dubbed with a demon's name. Of course, this was not done by believers, but by their opponents. Of course, the implication is that the god of the cult is basically just the devil, a demon. There's a book on tarot here. Tarot was based on the 22 Hebrew consonants and is said to represent the entire world. Each word, numbered 0 through 21, or each card, has a particular meaning. By reading these cards, fortune tellers predict the future. For example, the first card, the Magician, signifies creation, wisdom, beginnings, or destruction and fraud. The second card, the High Priestess, denotes intuition, harmony, faith, or dogmatism and arrogance. According to some texts, the Gardner deck had more than 22 cards. The Gardner deck does not exist today. It is mentioned only in literature. It is said that these extra cards were based on lost Hebrew vowels and denoted an otherworldly transcendental existence, i.e. God. Interesting, interesting. So let's walk over here and interact with this. The Moon Tarot card.
Hiya, Heather.
You show up everywhere, don't you?
You make me sound like some kind of unwanted pest.
Well, who are you anyway?
Haven't you realized that yet?
Yeah, you're on Claudia's side.
I told you not to put me in the same category as that mad woman.
Well, you're pretty loony yourself.
It's true. We believe in the same God. But I'm quite sane.
So why did you help me out then? Was that also part of trying to resurrect God?
It's not uncommon for people to worship the same God and still disagree.
God? Are you sure you don't mean devil?
Whichever you like. The point is that now I really am on your side. I don't want God to be born. Wouldn't be convenient. Much too unpredictable.
So you've been using me to stop Claudia, is that it? Do your own dirty work.
My dirty work? I think we both had our own interests in mind. You hate her too, don't you? You're the only one who can get it done. I don't have powers like you two. Besides, I always hated getting all hot, sweaty.
Oh, really?
I'm just looking out for myself. Everyone does it. Don't stand there looking so smug. You're the worst person in this room. You come here and enjoy spilling their blood. And listening to them cry out. You feel excited when you step on them and snuff out their lives.
Are you talking about the monsters?
Monsters? They look like monsters to you?
Oh no.
Don't worry. It's just a joke. By the way, I forgot to ask you. Did you get the Seal of Metatron?
What's that?
You don't have it? Leonard was carrying it.
You mean this thing?
Yes, that's it. As long as we have that, we're fine. Here, take this.
Interesting cutscene. We got the Book of Otherworld Laws. very, very famous and very important cutscene because, well, for two reasons. First, and less substantial, is when Vincent will talk about God, and Heather says, "You mean the devil?" And Vincent says, "Well, whichever you choose." Basically confirming again the God of the cult is a bastardization of the Christian religion, and is actually either the devil or one of the demons. Typically, well, canonically, it's the demon Samael, as hinted at by a few different sources: Silent Hill Origins, Downpour, even in Silent Hill 1. But based on the design, never mind. I'm thinking about a different demon. But also, the other important thing about the cutscene is, of course, monsters. They look like monsters to you, which props to Vincent Smith's voice actor, because he delivers that perfectly. He delivers it so perfectly, and it's such a staple of Silent Hill now, to the point where I'm just trying to imagine a world with Silent Hill in which you're not wondering, are these actually people? The whole town is so mysterious and crazy, but then when you think about stuff like that, it's just escalates it to the next level. It's crazy, man. Excellent cutscene, good stuff. We got this book of otherworldly laws, so let's go ahead and read it. It's somewhere in my inventory. Here it is. A big old book I got from Vincent in the archives. This magic square with strong protective and dispelling properties is called the Virum 7 Crest, or the Seal of Metatron. Sorry I started there, but I'm just thinking about this magic square. It doesn't look like a square to me. It will bring results regardless of whether the target is good or evil. Its strength, therefore, places a very high burden on the caster, as it is also difficult to control. It is not usually used. This is why it bears the name... There's a typo there, I think. Oh, Metraton. Never mind. After the angel Metatron, or Metraton, also known as the Agent of God. So just some more lore about that symbol. Anyways, I think this is probably a good place to stop for this episode. The next one will be the final one. All our questions will be answered. We'll talk about Voltiel, we'll talk about Claudia, and we'll even get to see the final boss, what this has all been building up to. Anyways, I hope you're having a great day, or night, wherever you are, or whenever you're watching this. And take care, my friends.